Hello, and welcome to the MMA Mic Drop Podcast. My name is Jade Bunky, and I am joined by the one and only Milo McGregor, who is not only one of the nation's top up-and-coming amateur surfers, but also an emerging MMA analyst. In this episode, we're going to talk about what matches to make after Whittaker just destroyed Ikram in that last fight night card. What we're going to do is we're going to go over the top 5 fights, every fight on the main card, and we're going to have matchups for both the winners and the losers. And first up, let me just say this. Robert Whittaker, as trite as it may sound, there are levels to this game, and he showed that there are levels. He looked good. He was impressive. And I think the next matchup for me is obvious. I'm matching him up against Strickland in a title eliminator. Against whom would you match up Whittaker next?
I think I'm going to go Whittaker versus Brendan Allen. I think, I think Whittaker is a good, to show, the levels to, the top 5. If he can beat Whittaker, then the contender.
Yeah, that's another exciting matchup. I'd be thrilled to see that. I know Robert Whittaker said he wanted to serve as backup as well for DDP versus Adesanya, which I think he should probably do that as well. I'm going with Strickland next. You're going with Brendan Allen next. Both are good matchups. Now let's move on. Ikram, he got exposed. Basically that I think just Robert Whittaker is just such an elite level fighter. And so here's what I want to do. I do want to match Ikram up against somebody in the rankings, but I want to give him Chris Curtis at 15. He's coming off a main event, so there's some brand value in his name right now. I'd like to see the UFC try to get him in a winnable fight in the rankings. I think that's Chris Curtis. That's who I'd like to see next for Ikram. Milo, who would you like to see him match up against next?
I agree with that. I think Chris Curtis would be a good matchup for
him. Awesome. All right. Now, the spoiler of the night, at least for me, Sergei Pavlovich versus Volkov. I went 8-3 in my picks. I did pretty well, but the one pick for which I was most confident was when I picked Sergei Pavlovich by first round knockout. I was wrong. I was dead wrong. Volkov looked good, and he exposed Sergei Pavlovich a bit. Let's see, Milo, against whom would you match up Volkov in his next fight?
I think for Volkov, I would do Jailton Almedia. I think that would be a good fight. Yeah.
I like that a lot. I mean, talk about just completely different styles and, really what guy's going to be in the top 5, right? I think I actually like that a lot. I'm going to go with that. How about Sergey? Against whom would you match him up?
I think I'd go for him, Stipe.
So, and it is funny to let all of you know, Milo and I were talking about this, and we did talk about, matching up Sergey against Stipe. And what are your thoughts on that? I have some pretty strong thoughts on why. Even though the UFC is planning Stipe versus Jon Jones, I would not let that happen. I would match up. I agree with you. I want to match him up against Stipe. But what's your rationale?
I think it's a way better matchup, and Jon Jones, Jon Jones should be fighting for the title, so I don't think he should be fighting against Stipe. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because Stipe hasn't fought in so long, and let alone hasn't won a fight in ages. He has no business being near a title fight. And so one of the reasons why, when I was talking about this before we went on, why I think this is a good fight is that if Stipe, you want a title shot, can you just beat the guy who lost to the number 5 guy? And I don't think he can. So I think,
agree.
Sure, I'm okay with you fast-tracking Stipe again as a former champion and given his age, but you got to beat somebody, right? And if I'm the UFC, I know Dana White is hell-bent on Jon Jones and Stipe, for a fight in the fall. I really just want to see Jon Jones fight Tom Aspinall, the winner of Aspinall versus Curtis. That's not going to happen. We know what it is. This is a little wishful thinking, but that's what I would do. I would do Stipe. Next up, Kelvin Gastelum. All right, I'll go first on this one. I'd like to see him against Bo Nickal, and here's why. Gastelum, one, he's fighting at middleweight. You never let him fight welterweight ever again. And he still has some name value. He didn't look good in his last fight. You give Bo Nickal, you're trying to slow roll him, but slow roll him against somebody with some name value, who's not that old considering how long Kelvin Gastelum has been around. I would do Bo Nickal there. And Daniel Rodriguez, I really don't have an opponent. Anybody kind of in the middle of the extended rankings, from like 20 to 30. He's primarily a boxer. I'd rather see him, I'd want to see him against, another striker as well. I don't really have a matchup for him. But Milo, what are your thoughts on those two?
I agree with you on the Daniel Rodriguez deal, but I think Kevin versus Shara Bullet, they both didn't look that great in the last fight, so I think that would be a good matchup.
Interesting, Shara Bullet, yeah, just match them up against each other. And speaking of which, Shara Bullet, I'm matching him up. You're right, he did not look good. Tricoli came in on short notice, he gassed, and he was standing still. And Shara Bullet was just really too methodical, too slow with that. And that was a little concerning. He should have put him away much earlier than that. So even though he won, it really drops his stock a little bit. I'm going to get him in a fun striking matchup. Give me Julian Marquez, the Cuban Missile Crisis. And then Tricoli, I'm giving him Cody Brundage. And we'll see what happens there. Milo, Volkan Oezdemir versus Johnny Walker. Tell me about this fight and tell me against whom you would match these two guys up against.
I think for Volkan, I would do Dominic Reyes. I think that's a good fight. But for Johnny Walker, I'm not 100% sure who I'd match him up. I think I'd give him a step down in competition, maybe like Alonzo Metafield or something.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think Johnny Walker definitely needs a step down in competition. And let me bring up the rankings. I do like the Oezdemir versus Dominic Reyes. I was thinking about that. I would rather see Reyes fight Anthony Smith if Anthony Smith wins up in this at UFC 303, or I'd like to see maybe a rematch against Jan. He's been out for a while, and I think this might turn out a little bit differently this time. But if not, I'm okay with Oezdemir versus Reyes. I think it's another guy you kind of want to fast track back up there, and I think that's a pretty winnable fight for Reyes. And it would be an interesting fight overall. I'm giving Johnny Walker Bogdan Guskov. He's number 12 ranked. I think Johnny Walker just needs to go back to the old Johnny Walker. Stop being patient. You're getting starched being patient. Just be that wild man, and you'll finish more than you get finished. That's my advice to him. Milo, any other thoughts on this particular card?
No, I thought it was really good though.
Yeah, it was a fun card. There were some fun fights on that. I really liked watching Felipe Lima come out of nowhere. I mean, he was exciting. It was an exciting prospect. I liked, what Robert Whittaker did. I mean, really showing that there are levels to this game. And in these short matches to make videos, we are not going to do the Kicking It with Milo or the Kook of the Week segments. So that's all I have. Milo, do you have a last word?
Drop the mic.
We're out.